Hello, Godot lovers. This is Wizard West March talking about collisions in Godot. Um, I answer a lot of questions on Pirate Software's Discord, and I've found that certain things come up a lot, and one of the ones that really confuses a lot of people is collisions. So, rather than constantly answer the same question, just being able to point to a video to answer it will make things much easier, and going forward, I probably will make more content as I go. Um, the screenshot is from my jam game, Shadow of Plato. Nothing crazy, FPS. If you want to check it out, search for it on itch. Alright, let us switch gears and start looking at some Godot. Here we have a simple 2D scene, got a static body, and have a player. So player is on layer 1 looking for mask 2 and 3. Static body is on layer 3 looking at mask 1. We will be using layer 2 in a little bit. But yeah, so that's it. And then the script, straightforward. This is the standard player script if you generate a character body in Godot 4. Not doing anything crazy. So move around with the arrow keys, jump, fall to my doom. Okay, so now the reason that we are here, collisions. There are two major parts to it, with a caveat with Ares we'll get to in a minute. Layer is where the thing is, mask is what it is looking for. So for example, the player is on 1 and is looking at 2 and 3, while the static body is on 3 and looking at 1. So, what happens if I remove the mask from static body? Nothing, because the static body isn't reacting to anything, it is just a presence. And yeah, so for example, and if we turn off the layer on the player, he still doesn't care. Now, obviously the big caveat to the second one is that would mean nothing could interact with the player. So like if you're doing stuff like, let's say you made an FPS like I did for the game jam. If I turn off the layer, then nobody can shoot it because there's nothing to collide with. So, just keep that in mind when you're looking at some of this stuff that I'm doing. However, if I turn off the mask, instead what's going to happen is immediately fall, because it is no longer looking for the static body. And similarly, if I turn off the layer, we have the same problem, because it doesn't have something to work with. So always keep that in mind, that a moving object needs to have the mask of anything it's going to collide with. That can be, once again, like bullets if you want to do like damage. You need to do anything that you want to walk on, that you want to jump on, anything that you want to have to walk around, so walls. All that stuff needs to be accounted for by the mask of your player character and your enemies as well, so that they'll actually properly navigate them. So that's that part. Now let's do something a little interesting. So this is a moving collider that I did. Very simple. Moves left at a constant rate. And I really hate how it doesn't always bring up stuff. So you'll see it's on layer 2, which is why the player was looking at layer 2 as well. So what happens when we bump into each other? I push right, I can't move. It's obviously constantly trying to move left, can't move. So they prevent each other from moving. Now this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to disable 2 as a mask on the player. So now the player can push the other one and it can't do anything about it, and it actually moves it. Normally, you can't do that because character bodies are meant to be controlled barring collisions. But when there's one-way collisions, it lets you push stuff around. So, and of course, if I remove the mask on this, oh, I removed on the wrong thing. Apologies, silly me. Everybody makes mistakes. So now he's pushing me along. I can't do a thing. So, a useful trick, and it obviously works with the reverse as well. It's the idea is, if one side sees the other, it can't push it. But if the other side is ignoring the first side, it can just keep moving and it'll just push, and the other one has nothing it can say about it. So that is the way that multiple like character bodies and rigid bodies I would expect would do the same thing. That's the way those are going to act. Let's look at something slightly different but equally important. So here is a collision shape. You will notice I have on area entered, and you will notice it is looking for mask of 1. So what's going to happen when I jump into it? Nothing. Why? So this is a thing I have seen so many people get confused about with Godot. There is a nasty little secret where there are 2 different signals for areas. Well, actually, there's more, but I've never used like shape, so I can't comment on that one. I keep trying to do Vim hotkeys. So now, if I run the scene, and I'm hitting F6 to be clear, so that I can just run the individual scene without having to change stuff, you will now see twice it showed up as I was entered by a body. Twice is because the entire object moves out of the area and then falls back through it. So once it's completely exited and then re-enters, it's going to re-fire this trigger. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The second part to keep in mind is, let's go ahead and attach an area. So here is a bonus area, and you will see it reacts to both kinds, which, I mean, technically wasn't necessary, but and then you will see here that it is also, so it's looking for 2, which is where this one is, and so they're looking for each other right now. And when I hit F6, they both triggered. Whereas if I disable the layer here, we only get the 1 detection because it didn't have an area to look for. So a thing to keep in mind with areas is, do you want it to trigger other areas? Then you need to have it have a layer. Do you want to react to an area entering it? Then you need a mask. Both is valid, but ask yourself, what is a given area's purpose? Because if it doesn't have a layer or doesn't have a mask, it's not going to have to do those certain computations whenever the engine is doing collision detections, because it knows it can't happen. So anything that you don't need, it makes sense to turn off, and that will make it easier on you. So you can flip it in whichever way you want, but just remember, whichever thing is going to have the script triggering based on being entered has to have a mask. If you keep that in mind, you're good. One thing I think I should probably show while we're in here. So this is a useful thing. In the project settings, you can actually name your layers. So like, let's say I put it at player. Now, when I mouse over it, it will actually tell you the name. So if you don't like having to remember what your layers are, Give them names. It will save you so much pain. And yeah, so you have, and just to be clear, you have 32 for each. So you need to remember that you do have that limit. If you want to get around it, you can. But honestly, that's an entirely different topic. So that is the core of how collisions work. Hopefully you find this really helpful. And in time, I intend to create more of these. So if you found them useful, keep an eye out. Have a great day, Godot lovers.